This is the Mind Body Detox Podcast, where we discuss all things integrative health and wellness, interviewing folks from all over the world, sharing insights and wisdom for how to live a healthier life in mind, body, and spirit. Welcome back, everyone, to the Mind Body Detox Podcast. I'm your host, integrative intuitive medium Kara Lovehart, and today we have our special guest is Dr. Anna Marie Frank. She is a doctor of traditional naturopathy and a PhD in natural medicine. She is the founder of Happy Whole You Wellness Centers and creator of a unique brain nutraceutical line. Overcoming personal struggles with depression and learning difficulties, she is committed to advancing brain health. Anna Marie is the author of Stop Bullying Yourself, guiding readers towards improved health, wealth, and happiness, and embodying her holistic and continuous learning approach to well-being. So welcome to the show today, Dr. Anna Marie. I have really just want to kind of dive right in here to your background and what called you specifically to really branch into integrative health and as a naturopath.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on. Well, my journey essentially started when I was in high school. I struggled with depression, but back then I didn't know what to call it. I didn't feel right inside, and on the outside, everything looked great. I was an athlete. I had a roof over my head. I got good grades. And so there was this dark secret inside of me that I wasn't happy. And I didn't really know where that came from for a while. And then I graduated, went on to university. I thought, oh, fresh start. Like this is going to solve everything, right? I can reinvent myself. I can go to college. And my mental health continued to go on a downward spiral in college. Once I graduated, I decided to move across the country from Michigan to California. Now, this was the opportunity for me to feel better inside, as I told myself. And what I found in my early 20s, as I sat in a psychiatrist's office and got put on 3 mind-altering medications within 15 minutes, I really spiraled out from there. So medications did not work for me. And through that journey and realizing that I was the only person that can actually heal myself and make myself happy, I set forth on a journey to figure out, I thought, if you can rewire a computer, we could rewire our brains, right? And so I started diving into natural remedies, holistic health, naturopathy, energy healing. And I just ultimately just started layering in different practices that helped heal my brain and heal my body. And so that's kind of it in a nutshell. But I got here on purpose due to my own struggles in my life. And now I get to help others that, hopefully they don't have to take a decade of their life to figure it out or longer, and help them start the healing process, because I believe we all can heal ourselves.
So when I first got the opportunity to have you on the show, I was like, yes, 100% F yes, because this has been my journey, and along the path, finding professionals that have the background, the experience, their own personal experience as well with medications just not working for them, and having that credibility, that's been really challenging. And now it's changing now, 10 years, 20 years later down through this journey, it's changing now. I'll just briefly share with you guys, a lot of people who have listened to the podcast hear the story, but I was medicated numerous times, and I'm very sensitive to medications. I'm also a medium, so I'm sensitive to substance and so substance to energy. I'm just sensitive. And for my journey, it was a lot going and just trying to figure it out. And so someone like you, in this day and age where so many people are medicated, so many people are seeking alternative solutions. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about ADD as well today. So I'm really excited to get to that. But I'm curious, along your journey, your personal journey for you, were there any milestones for you that related to your cognitive and mental health that drove you and saying, okay, now this milestone, I'm done here in this part of the depression or this part of the learning? You had learning disabilities, and you were working with learning challenges, and you were working with ADD. What were the milestones for you that you started to kind of connect that you could start to work with and help other people along the journey?
Well, first, it was the realization that nothing's wrong with me. It's just the way I wound up being, and really recognizing that I am smart, I am intelligent, and my brain just works differently than other people's, and embracing my own unique, I'll say, weirdness, because my kids will say, "You're weird, mom." I'm like, "Thank you." So I'm definitely different. And the biggest milestone was forgiving myself for my past as well. So when we're not mentally well, we choose to do things that are not well, right? So, people say, well, love yourself, love yourself. Well, how are you supposed to love yourself when you're not doing lovable things for yourself, to yourself? And so once I forgave myself from my past and I realized that the things I've done in my past, where I came from, mistakes I've made do not define me. And I chose to take the lessons extracted from those moments and leave the emotions in my past and just move forward with those lessons. I started to feel lighter inside. Um, and so that was a big thing. So forgiveness to myself and letting go of the past and not allowing it to shape my future. And then I actually had quite a few run-ins in the medical industry. Um, as I worked through my depression, I ended up getting pregnant, and I really had a wonderful pregnancy. It was a beautiful experience until I went to give birth, and I had a very unsettling birthing experience where this doctor wanted to vacuum my son out of me. And I said no. And that it was like, well, the doctor came in the middle of the night to deliver this baby. And now you're going, like, it was my fault that my son wasn't ready to come out. And then right after that, birthing a child is very traumatic. First and foremost, it's a beautiful traumatic experience. Your body needs time to heal from it. And after that, when my hormones shifted as my milk came in, I got postpartum depression, like at such a level of I it's like I think back to it and I think I was a different person. And it scared me. I remember I told my husband that there was a gun in the hallway closet, and I said, "Do something with that." And I started crying. I'm like, "I don't know what, just take it away," just because I knew it was there. And it's like I never wanted to harm my child, but myself. And I had to work so hard mentally to like be like, this is just an experience. This is just an experience. And then I went to my doctor, and the thing they offered me for postpartum depression was an antidepressant. And I just remember, I'm like, remember, Anna Marie, remember, you've been here before, right? But when you feel so bad inside, you're desperate. And so, and I've been programmed to go to a doctor with a white coat and get a pill. And so that woke me up even more. And I'm like, I will get through this. So a lot of mental work I have done. Um, and so that was another reminder of you get to choose your health and well-being. And yes, these are just experiences. And so looking at my life as a bunch of experiences versus saying, "Oh, I have so much trauma," right? And so that's a big piece of it. And then I got pregnant with my daughter, and they told me that my daughter most likely had Down syndrome and wanted me to go to a geneticist and said I could abort her up to 20 weeks. And just like I have so many stories of run-ins, and I think I just find it interesting, and I laugh. I'm like, "Okay, universe, you just keep throwing these things at me to remind me to stay grounded, to search for information, and to stand up for myself." And I believe there's a time and place for medicine. Do not get me wrong. But there is also, we need to make decisions for our health, not out of fear, first and foremost. And we need to ask why and ask questions. And so those have been some pretty impactful moments in my life in terms of my mental health, but really recognizing to let the past go, forgive myself, and realize that every single thing that we take into our lives, what we choose to see, what we choose to smell, what we choose to taste, put in our bodies, what we choose to listen to, who we choose to hug, our environment that we choose to be in. Are we outside? All of that is downloading information into our being, into our auric field. And if you're not paying attention to the downloads, you are going to be getting downloaded information that is not serving your highest good for you to live a true and authentic life. And so that's another piece that I started to wake up to versus letting being reactive in life to be in action with life and be in the present moment with life.
I love that you were really sharing how much that your process and your journey was just an experience. I
Mm-hmm.
think disconnecting the shame, the fear, the stigma, these kind of like this energetic signature. We have an idea of mental illness, and we have then along with those ideas, there's layers of feelings, there's layers of associations that we in our culture in movies and what we've learned. Again, this is all the things you're saying that's coming into our arc field that we're just absorbing, and it's just there on the unconscious, whether we're not aware of it. And it's just that's how our view, our perception, our worldview, our identity, we potentially identify with that a mental health diagnoses. And I
Mm-hmm.
think the biggest step to help people understand to separate that is so powerful. And then you did that work. And the surrendering work itself is the most challenging, almost ongoing process, I think, for some people. And some people never really have the tools or resources or the awareness to be able to get there. But I always tell people, like, isn't it interesting that with a physiological health issue, we don't have so much shame around it? Like if we're
Yeah.
diabetic and you're like, oh, I have to take insulin, and maybe that
Yeah.
person has to for their particular journey. There's no attached shame necessarily. And,
Mm-hmm.
and same thing if you twist your ankle, it's not like, oh my gosh, I am, a horrible person. All these layers of that don't get piled on. So I just find that really, really interesting. Now, of course, we're talking so much about the information that's coming in and how you're assimilating it in your being. When did you first realize that there was a connection between the mind and body? When did that start for you? And then how did that progress with in working with your clients?
Well, I started to realize that when I chose to look at the positive, I felt better. It was that simple. When I chose, like, I would be the person that would show up and complain about everything that went wrong on my morning drive to work. And that was exhausting. And so when I started to just like not complain about the things that in my life that seemed challenging or that I didn't like, I started to just view what was good. So it's really that gratitude practice because our brains are very powerful and they will actually filter out everything to see the very thing you're telling your brain to look for. Right. And we're programmed to look for danger. This is why we always go to the negative first, because this is a survival mechanism that is instilled in our being. But majority of people don't have to live in survival mode anymore. And so it was making a conscious choice to look for what was good and then allowing myself to see that. And I physically started to feel better. And then I learned about Dr. Emoto's work with, if you've ever heard of him, I'm sure you have, with, the consciousness of water. And with that experiment, he proved that water has consciousness, meaning that you can say words to water, love, 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 and that water will actually vibrate with beautiful crystals. It'll form beautiful crystals if you freeze that water. And then if you have water that is spoken to with negative words, then that water freezes in a darker, more chaotic form. The other thing is you look at plants, and I started learning about plants. And there was this really cool exercise that I don't even remember the school. It was a school. I saw this video on YouTube, and it really made an impact on my mind. And what they did is they had like a foyer where there was, glass and there was essentially the same lighting that came through. And they had two boxes, one box of glass that had a plant in it, and the second box of glass that had a plant in it. Both boxes had the same soil, the same plant, like everything identical. They had microphones that went to each plant. The one microphone, kids could only say positive affirmations to it, positive things. The other plant, kids could only say negative things or tell all their problems to. Within 30 days, the plant that was spoken to with all the negative things and all the problems started to wither and die. And so, if our bodies are mostly made up of water, what do you think your thoughts and your words are doing to your biochemical makeup? So that's when I started to really study energy medicine and started to realize like the words that I speak, the thoughts that I have are incredibly powerful. And that really started to wake me up and started for me to start shifting. I would catch myself with, we all have that background of downloads. I'm not good enough. That's not available to me. People don't like me. I mean, I have all of these programs into my subconscious. And every time I consciously override that and remind my subconscious, yes, but this is not true, that it frees you. Your body feels lighter. You feel better. So that mind body that is a real thing. You can think yourself ill and you can think yourself healthy. I believe all dis-ease starts in the mind, and we're all mental. So that's why good health matters. So you got to do the things.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something to say if if you're thinking about. I want to point out about the plants because I think I love this interesting transition we have with our society now, where we have been so um, left brain science oriented, logical, structured, oriented to physical proof, and this awareness that we have more than that side of our brain. And even I'd extend it beyond that. Like we only have a specific gray matter and the way that our brain operates for specific orienting us to five senses. Now, as a
Mhm.
medium, I'm always like, there's so much more to awareness and consciousness. And when people are skeptical about it, I accept that they're operating from that place in awareness. So there's
Yeah.
no needing to fight it, right? But I kind of point out the whole thing with the plants. Like plants don't have a conscious awareness of what we as humans deem to be quote unquote negative or positive. We create that polarity of judging that's a negative thought or that's a positive thought of what they're
Mhm.
saying, of the kids were sharing. But I love kind of bringing it back to energy medicine, and the loving thoughts they're coherent, they bring
Mhm.
together, they combine, they connect. And that's what we feel within ourselves. I think when we're in that space, when you're overriding your programs, right, you're feeling connected to yourself, you're feeling coherent, you're feeling connected to others, there's no judgment. And the opposite's true with what we would label as negative, where we start to disconnect from ourselves,
Mhm.
disconnect from each other, creating a separation. And with the Masahiro Emoto thing, isn't it so cool to see with the negative and the kind of the disoriented music that's being played, or the words, the
Yeah.
water molecules and the crystals become, like you said, chaotic. They become disoriented and disconnected,
Mhm.
not coherent and connected. So like there's those two things as we continue this conversation here, coherence or disconnection. I'd like the audience to keep those in the back of their mind, because I feel like it kind of stems from that as the foundation for all of this. But I know we kind of shared here a little bit. You shared the things that you learned along the way for how thoughts shape our health.
Mhm.
Is there any other things related to that topic, any science or research you'd like to share? Anything with that mind body awareness that you didn't mention already with the plants and the Masahiro Emoto and our programming, subconscious, that you find very fascinating?
Yeah, I think that I want to point out one thing about the brain that I think a lot of people can relate to is we all went through that whole period of the fear around COVID, right? So when we get put in a state of high fight or flight fear, and this was pushed on every single one of us, I don't think anyone was untouched from this. What happens is there's a part of your brain where this amygdala that starts going a little bit crazy. And this emotional part of your brain starts to take over. This is very true when we are teenagers. And when that's happening, what happens is it cuts us off from using our prefrontal cortex, which is our executive function thinking. And so when we are in a state of fear, and worry and anxiety, we are not making the best decisions that's for the highest good of all. And so many people live in that energy. and they feel so dense and they feel so tired and they're not sleeping and their thyroid's bothering them and they're not digesting food properly and they get lower back pain and their joints ache. And I see this every day with people I work with. And so when we really take inventory of our physical body and recognize that if we go inside every single cell till we can't go any further, the only thing that's left is energy. So to not address the energetics of the human body when it comes to healing, I believe we're missing a whole aspect of healing. And so we just paying attention to how you're thinking, what you're allowing to come in. If you're an anxious person, you should not be watching the news. Like, like, do not do that. You should be in the evening going outside. We should all be doing this, putting your bare feet in the grass, walking around, being in nature, and so it's incredible what the earth gives us in terms of sunshine, in terms of like being in nature, just going outside your front door and how that starts to help with the body and how the brain is functioning. But I think it's important for people to take inventory of how is your brain functioning, and going and getting a medication first and foremost as your first step to think that you're improving your brain health. I feel like that is a huge, huge mistake. uh, Medication, in my opinion and in my experience, should be the very last thing, the last resource. And reminding people that your brain doesn't even fully develop till you're around 25 years old. And so more and more people, especially young people, I see a lot of young people are anxious. They're not sleeping. They're on these devices and they're they're just so anxious. So of course they're not using their prefrontal cortex. All of us weren't using it anyways when we were younger, but thank God I didn't have cell phones when I was that age. Like I can't even imagine, So I think really paying attention to how your brain is functioning and the thoughts that are coming through and recognizing that you are energy first. First and foremost, we are all energetic. And so we have to pay attention to the energies that we're allowing to surround us. Even the thoughts of other people impact our physical body, which is crazy. But it's super powerful.
I think that it's been really challenging, watching my child kind of go through this process that I had to go through with. He wanted to choose to do medication,
Mm,
every single medication within 20 minutes to 2 hours, horrible effects like,
mm,
floor rippling, space is not feeling right, kind of getting high off of a very, very low dose of either,
yeah.
something that really, and again, medication is something that's supportive for some people, but I like, it shouldn't be the first thing. And then even the challenges with coming off of them. There's like, that's where I think the dangers are, that people don't really get that informed consent ahead of time. Like, okay, this
Mhm.
is the medication that you're going to take and it's going to help you with this, or it should
Yeah.
help you with this. But there's never any chat about what happens when I maybe decide that I'm done with it, or I'm taking it for a
Mhm.
short period of time in my journey. I'd love if you'd share a little bit about that, because that's something that is not talked about. And I think it's really scary from what we've experienced. My son has now been off for 4 weeks
Mhm.
on medication, and he's doing neurofeedback, which
Oh, cool.
is
Yeah.
freaking phenomenal. I don't know if you want to talk about that at all, but
Yeah.
I just feel like there's things that people aren't aware of,
Mhm.
specifically with medications and getting off of them.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is where we ask questions. We're supposed to ask questions. So, if your doctor is going to put you on mind altering medications, you should be asking, what training do you have to get me off of this medication? How long should I be on this medication? What are the side effects of this medication in conjunction with other medications, with supplements I take? Like, we need to ask more questions and quit allowing a doctor to give us medicine and we don't ask a question and we just start taking it. Like, this to me is like, this is exactly what I did, by the way. This is why I'm so passionate about it, because I did not ask a question. I was 22 years old and put on 3 mind-altering medications without a fully developed brain. Like, to me, that is, like, insane, and younger and younger and younger people are being put on these medications. And the other thing is, we don't even know how to measure brain chemistry, right? Like, you're not gonna get put on a heart medication without testing your blood pressure, without doing some type of scan or some type of testing of the heart. So this is Russian roulette. This is a game of figuring out what could work.
Yeah,
We
it's
don't
a lot of
really
guessing, it
know.
feels like. It's a
It
lot.
is it is a lot of guessing, right? "Oh, well, let's just try this." It's
Do
like,
you have
"Well."
anything to speak on? Everyone's, of course, unique and their body's different, but I know one thing that I don't know if everyone thinks about also as well is your genetic expressions, specific things
Mhm.
that maybe are confiscating your detoxification pathways.
Yeah.
So that may, hurt your liver,
Methylation.
kidneys, methylation, things that, people don't have that awareness as well, that also could be contributing factors to symptoms for mental health issues.
Yeah, great point, and this is where I always remind people, get back to the basics. So about 40% of people have an issue with methylation. Some of you may say, "Well, what is methylation?" Methylation is essentially we put something in our body, a vitamins, anything, and our body converts it to make it bioavailable so we can use those raw materials to do basic necessary things, functions of the human body. So if you're not working and you don't have access to raw materials, this is like building a house, right? Like, oh, we don't have enough screws, or we don't have enough nails, or we're going to miss a few pieces of wood here. It's not going to work out so great. You could get a standing structure, yes, but there's issues there. So I always say go back to the basics. We should be eating fruits and vegetables, meats, fats, seeds, nuts. I mean, nutrition is not confusing. It's really simple, but with advertising to us, it has become very confusing. I believe, and I see from my own experience with the clients I see, a lot of them are deficient in minerals. And then also in terms of vitamins, making sure you're getting a vitamin in its most bioavailable form. This is why I created my own line of nutraceuticals specifically for the brain, because I was finding I was sending people to the health food stores or telling them to go online to the wild, wild west to order, B vitamins or this and that. And then I'm realizing that they're getting unmethylated, that they're getting stuff that is full of magnesium stearate. It's just full of stuff that actually is not helping. And so it's really important to know what your body is able to process or what it's not. And I just say we should all act like our body's not processing properly. So we should, supplement accordingly. Because if you're supplementing with the right good products, then you don't have to worry about methylation. And then the other thing is eating well, drinking water. I mean, all of these things are important. If you haven't, had a good solid diet for 60 to 90 days, if you haven't been going outside for at least an hour every single day, putting your feet in the grass, hanging out in nature, if you're not sleeping 7 to 8 hours every single night, if you're not, having a hobby, a purpose is so important. If you're not doing these things, you're not having good positive conversations and good relationships. If you're not doing like those 5 basic things, you need to start doing those first. I would highly recommend that you start working into those things first, to create that support around you. And so your body and your brain can function in a way that is supportive. But I think too often, yeah, we go to the bottle first, and it's like, when's the last time you had a green leafy salad and ate blueberries? I mean, these are important basic things, but I think they're overlooked, just because of the culture we live in terms of consumption, 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 competition over collaboration. So it's a culture thing as well that we really need to override, because we're not programmed to want to heal ourselves like we used to when we used to live in villages, and we used to have, everyone would help each other, and that was a beautiful thing. And now it's not like that much anymore.
Well, like you said earlier, with the frontal lobe kind of going offline, our executive functioning, that we can think and connect the dots between things. And when we go through trauma, like the collective trauma of
Mhm.
COVID, that kind of shuts down, and being able to see or think that way, it doesn't matter how many PhDs you have or how smart you are. Like, it
Yes.
still is not operating the right way. So I feel like thinking our way out of it is not the answer. It never
Mhm.
works.
Mhm.
Down regulating the nervous system and doing all the things you're sharing. But I find it really just so fascinating because, yeah, we do live in a culture of competition. And to me, I look at it from this broader perspective, like, okay, if we are trying to really compete and play the world game of, whether the local game, the regional game, the world game of being better, competing, coming out on top, whatever that winning looks like, whatever that standard of winning is, why not be well rested so that you have the stamina? Why not have better mental health in your entire economic system so you can compete? Your community, your our citizens can create some sort of
Mhm.
innovative product or something that creates something on the market for bringing in more income and more, lessening poverty and improving health. Why does that not compute? That is the way to compete in a global market when we are not winning. We are
Mhm.
not winning. I know that's like a side thing, but I don't know if you want to talk on that, but it just does
Yeah.
not make any sense to me.
Well, I mean, I think also it has to do with, I mean, I could be maybe considered a conspiracy theorist, but I don't think so. Is that if you keep certain people down, just imagine if every person lived their true authentic life, meaning every person who is showing up to a job they don't like every day, that is unhappy, goes home, yells at their kids, drinks beer every night, just feeling what if they decided, I am really into cars. I love rebuilding old cars. And they got to do that for their life. And they got to figure out a way to follow their dream and completely be in that world. I mean, that would be so powerful. But what happens is people get in the rat race. I have been there. You get in the rat race of going to a job every day to collect a paycheck, and maybe you do enjoy it and maybe you're good at it, but you're not thriving. You're not like living in a way that is so abundant. And I did this for 18 years. It wasn't until I turned 40 years old that I walked away from a six-figure salary, check all the boxes, insurance, health benefits, retirement, all of that. And it felt so scary to me. I was like literally paralyzed for 2 years and couldn't make the decision to just step away. And I needed to step away because I was good at the job. I was helping people, but it wasn't to my full capacity. So something felt empty inside of me and I felt like just not right inside. And it wasn't until I walked away from that and started to fully invest myself into happy whole you that I have the most clarity in my life. I have like the best blood work I've ever had in my life. I have an abundance of social outlets and just time with my children and with my husband. And what's crazy is everything else took care of itself. And that's trusting, right? Like when we trust in the process of life. And if you can believe in yourself enough and your dream and what you truly want, and you follow it your way, not how, these people on social media, oh, make $10,000 a month and I'll show you how. No, no, no. Like literally, you have an organic blueprint within your soul and how you're supposed to show up and how you're supposed to help move humanity forward. And if you can tap into that, I promise you, things are going to take care of themselves. And maybe the way you do that is you do have a job that you go to and you leverage where you're at so you can do your soul's work and your purpose as a side thing for a while, right? There's not a right or wrong way to do it. And well, I'll say there is a wrong way to do it. When you're doing it like other people and you're not doing it like you and how you're supposed to do it, that's when we're on the wrong path. And so I think most people are not living their true authentic life. And so that's why we feel so dysregulated, and people's immune systems are down, people's nervous systems are on fire, and they're living in this fight or flight. And yeah, I think that if we go back to our soul and who we are, I mean, as a medium, you probably see this all the time, spirits and guides sharing with you, with or whoever's in front of you, like, hey, tell them everything is okay. You are supported. And so I think we forget that we're supported all the time when we're in our true authentic self and following our soul's purpose.
I think that the work and the journey that you have done, and that so many listening are either starting or they're in the middle of, or they're jumping back onto this journey of finding the self, like the true authentic self. You can't, connect with it. You can't do it and be your live your purpose until you know who you are. And
Mm-hmm.
those processes you said of eating well, connecting with yourself, reprogramming, getting sleep, all those I think are part of the journey. That is
Yeah.
part of the process. And then you get to that part where then you have the awareness of self and your authentic purpose. And then, of course, the bravery and developing that journey, that part of the journey of leveraging and whatever that looks like for each
Mm-hmm.
person of when they start jumping into the expression of that. But I love living right now. Oh my gosh, I'm getting goosebumps. It is so incredible. The leaps and bounds of what I would say is our conscious, soul human evolution of moving into just this, just what you
Mhm.
did. And just what I'm doing, what we're here, really trying to inspire our guests to do, our listeners, and all of us around it. We're walking each other home with this, like Ram Dass says.
Mhm.
It's something that is so cool. Like, what
It
could be
is.
cooler than living right now?
It is. One thing I do want to throw in here, because some of you may be saying, "Oh, Anna Marie, but you don't know what I'm going through, right? You don't know what I've been through." And you're right. But I want to remind all of us that we get to go through the good, the bad, and the ugly. We get to go through that. It is a gift. So when you can recognize the things you've been through in your life and you view them through the lens as if they are a gift, and I have some things in my life that are, you would not look at them and say that was a gift. However, I choose to look at them as a gift now because of the lessons that they taught me, because of how I have developed. Nobody gets to go through this lifetime and this human experience easy, smooth sailing. There are going to be ups and downs. As much as I've worked on myself, I know the universe and God is going to bring me more challenges, because every time I get met with a challenge in front of me, yes, it doesn't always feel great. Sometimes I feel like, how in the world am I going to get through this? But then I go back to who I am from a soul level and I say, you chose this. You have been chosen to go through this. And what is going to be on the other side of this? And there's always something beautiful on the other side of it. And so I strongly encourage you to get out of the mindset of, yeah, but you don't know what's happened to me and my life is so hard. Because if you keep saying those things, your brain's going to filter everything to make you see everything that's hard in your life. And life is not supposed to be easy, right? It's supposed to be challenging. It really is, because that's what develops you. That's what evolves your soul. So I just want to remind everyone that we are chosen to go through those hard times. And I also believe that before we came to earth, that we agreed, we had like this soul contract that we agreed to go through what we went through. So then I also remind myself, you picked this, you chose this. So yeah.
Well, I'm so grateful to connect with you and just really chat about all of this. And one of the things that always comes up for me, and even more so recently with social media, and there's a lot of people maybe recognizing that they're struggling with mental health issues, or they might say, I think I might have ADD, or I think I might have ADHD. So let's dive into that, because I know that you were diagnosed with ADD. I'm
Mm-hmm.
wondering, this whole, to me, I'd love to hear your perspective on this, but those type of labels are for insurance companies
Yeah.
for creating, billing codes.
Yep.
And we are buying into these symptoms, this collection of symptoms. How much of those symptoms are created from our diet, are created from our trauma as a collective, maybe through our own individual journey or COVID? Because I have so many people I've talked to and worked with myself with I have ADHD symptoms, but down regulation of the nervous system, cleaning up the diet, there is no more, it's not there. It's not
Yeah.
there. And people are
Yeah.
I think people are getting excited though, because they're like, I just discovered what's quote unquote wrong with me. I have ADHD and this is why I do these things. I'm like, okay, but then they're trapped into that this is how it is
Yeah.
now, and I don't want to, like, this may be very controversial, my opinion on that, because my opinion is it's not something, it's something that if we were living in nature outside and we had to survive and we had to easily quickly scan our surroundings with our peripheral vision, hear any animals coming at us, yeah, we'd be looking all over the place and
Mhm.
quickly easily distracted, because that's how we would survive.
Right.
So why is that something that's wrong with us then, if we are in that place, in that state of our nervous system? So go ahead and take it away, because I'm really very passionate about this,
Yeah.
obviously. So
Well, first and foremost, when we feel uneasy inside all the time, that's not normal. It is normal to have moments, like you said, where we're scanning, where we're anxious, where we're sad, where we're happy, where we're joyful. It's just not normal to feel anxious and fear all the time. And if that is happening, or being distracted all the time, can't focus on anything, when these things are happening, this is your body's way of saying something is not going on and something's not right inside, meaning you're not helping me. You are abandoning me. You are making me struggle, and I'm trying to compromise in ways so you can survive. And so, with the whole ADHD thing, like for me, it was, I wasn't great at sitting in a classroom for 6 to 8 hours a day. I needed to, when learned and taught myself how to study, I literally would go to the loudest coffee shop when I was in college, and I could sit there and I could focus and I could literally study for like an hour or two. And that was like the max for it. Even to this day, when I go to write or study something, I'm writing my second book right now, I go to a loud coffee shop or somewhere that's loud, or Barnes and Noble, because that is how my brain works. There's nothing wrong with that, right? What doesn't work for me is to sit in a classroom where everybody is quiet and have to sit there and listen to someone talk about something I'm not very interested in. And that's the other thing is people will say, "Oh yeah, my kid has ADD or ADHD." Well, they might not care what the teacher's saying. But you know what? You take them outside and they get to like experience nature, or you can teach them science in a way that is like touching, feeling more tactile. And their brain is like, yes, I am learning all of this. If you're teaching them math with a ball and a hula hoop, and you're teaching them how to like, you put this many balls in the hula hoop, you take two away, how many do you have? I mean, that is very different than something on paper that is very linear, right? And so the fact that we're even labeling people children at that is insane. And now it's more socially acceptable. Like I said, when I was in high school, I didn't know what depression was. Like I mean, I don't know, but I can get teenagers in here all the time that sit in the chair. They're like, "Yeah, I have ADD, I have depression, I also have anxiety all the time." I'm like, "These are not things you have. These are things you're experiencing. So let's dive into why you're experiencing those." And so, yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that all these labels are a disservice. They are definitely billing codes. If you've ever looked at your explanation of benefits, so if you have a health insurance, most people don't know this because we also work with businesses and corporations on worksite wellness programs for their staff. And if you look at your billing codes, so one time I looked at some billing codes, I went to an OBGYN, And there were all these billing codes for all these things. And one of them on there was a pregnancy test. Well, how am I getting a pregnancy test when I'm getting an IUD out? Tell me that. I didn't pee in a cup. I didn't get a pregnancy test, right? But guess what? Because I'm female and they could bill and get an extra $40 here, $40 there. That's what's happening. And so I call the doctor's office, say, "Hey, you billed for a pregnancy test and I did not get that." And they're like, "Oh, well, your insurance paid it, so you're gonna have to call your insurance." I call my insurance company and I say, "Hey, by the way, so they billed for this pregnancy test and I didn't have a pregnancy test." And they're like, "Oh, you need to go talk to your doctor." All right. At that point, who has time for that? Right. So there's also all these billing codes. And once that goes on your record, like I had a client who had, I'm quote using air quotes, had lupus. And she went to go get, I think she said she was trying to get life insurance and she couldn't get it. She did work on herself and it was no longer detectable with the blood work that she was doing. And this was about 9 months later or so. She did a lot of work here, did a lot of stuff on her own, went back and they said, no, you can't get life insurance because of this, whatever code was put on her medical records. And that's going to follow her the rest of her life. So we have to really wake up and pay attention. What are you allowing to be essentially, I call it cords, but corded to you or literally stamped on you? And you don't even have, and most people don't even know this is happening. They don't even look at their explanation of benefits. They're like, oh, my insurance covered it. You're paying your insurance. And maybe you don't pay out of pocket for your insurance or your employer is paying. But guess what? The reason you're not making more higher salary or a higher hourly rate is because that employer is factoring, they got to pay for this insurance for you. And so a big fan, ask questions, pay attention, because we don't really know where this is going. And if you have a child and they're 7 years old and they're being diagnosed with ADHD, they're being diagnosed with bipolar disorder, I mean, wow. What's going to happen when they go to get their own insurance and there's no longer open enrollment? Because yeah, and in this country, to my knowledge, because I've tried to get this, that you can't like. My family pays about $1,500 a month in like bare minimum health insurance. Like I was like, hey, I just want something catastrophic insurance. Can I get catastrophic insurance? If there's an accident, right? If there's my arm goes flying off in a car accident, or I need a surgery, or like something where the medical industry is so amazing at saving lives, I want that insurance. And guess what? In this country, you can't get that insurance. You have to have a baseline of health insurance, which is really, in my opinion, sick insurance. And I'm paying $1,500 a month, almost $18,000 a year. I mean, this is criminal to me. And I can be punished and fined in this country for not having that? Like, people, why are we not asking more questions?
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, I went on a rant there, but thank
No,
you for
yeah,
listening.
no. I mean, asking questions is where we take our power back in every single
Yes.
aspect of our lives.
Yes. And when they're telling you not to ask those questions or they're blowing you off and they're saying, look this way, that's when we need to ask even more questions and be even stronger in the questions that we're asking. Because it's just, yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff going on that most people aren't aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so asking my final questions, since we're going on questions is the best way to go. I would love to learn more about, the audience and listeners want to learn a little bit more about any cool things you're up to. I mean, you mentioned your book, your programs, your offerings. We'd love to hear and share with what is it that you're up to that you're offering the world that we can learn more about from you.
I'm really just up to like learning more from others. So this is why I appreciate you bringing me on this podcast, and I love listening to podcasts and just finding like just hearing different voices, right? Like we don't have to agree with other people's thoughts and opinions, but I think it's important that we're exposed to them. So some goals and things I'm up to this year is my goal is to be on over 30 podcasts and to record one podcast a week on my podcast, the Happy Whole You podcast. And so that's something I'm up to because I love collaborating with other people and I love having conversations. And I encourage other people to do that. Like pick up the phone and call someone again. No more just texting. Ask someone to go for a walk just to have conversation. So that's something. And then the other thing that we're up to that we've really pushed out this year is our work site. We call them well-being and performance programs, where we're working with companies. We're doing webinars with companies. We're doing cooking classes. We're doing DIY skincare and just like all these holistic opportunities, paint nights locally. And we're working with clients that are remote. In other areas, just to bring that well-being and opportunities of wellness to people that otherwise maybe are caught up in their day to day and they're not thinking, oh, taking a paint night or doing a paint class or, oh, I can make my own, laundry detergent or, my own cleaning products that saves you time. It helps it's better for your health, saves you a lot of money. And then we do these 6-week programs on mindset and raising your frequency. And so that's been really fun to go into companies, all sorts of companies, public sector, private sector, and work with these individuals. I'm just a people person. So I love just developing, creating relationships and helping people see some things that I've learned. And if they love it and they pick up on it, that's cool. And then I love learning from other people as well.
Awesome. And so we can learn more about, I'm going to put everything in the show notes for accessing your podcast, your website. Is there anywhere you want to specifically that you're really active on? Any platforms, social media that you really love to interact with people on?
Well, we did just start dr.anna.marie on Instagram. And so that's going to be more of like me personally sharing things. And then the Happy Whole You on Instagram is more of our brick and mortar location in Bakersfield, California, and services that we provide. So either one of those is good. And then happywholeyou.com. You can see the nutraceuticals we've created and the courses that we have there just to help lift you up. And yeah, all of it's there.
Awesome. Well, we have 2 final questions we ask
Okay.
everyone when they're on our show for the first time. So the first question is, what is your favorite product, wellness topic, or self-care indulgence at this time?
Oh my God. There's so many. Okay. So I'm a big fan of castor oil. I literally rub it all over my face. If there's a problem, castor oil is involved. I woke up one morning and I slept wrong on my arm. I believe I slept wrong. My husband said it was because we went bowling. And he's like, no, you got sore from bowling, which I'm not going to believe that. But I couldn't lift my arm up. And so what I did is I put tons of castor oil with cayenne pepper and wrapped it up. And literally it was better within 24 hours. So that was cool because actually the first 24 hours I was just like, oh, and I was dealing with the pain and I'm like, why am I not putting castor oil on this? Why am I not doing cayenne pepper? And once I did that, boom, it started to improve. So that, and then I have to say, I'm going to shamelessly plug 2 of my products. One, because I've worked so hard on creating these and formulating them, but our Whole You, it's a liquid multi-food based, think of it as microdosing micro minerals, amino acids, fatty acids. It's my blanket because I used to take 20 some pills a day, and literally I take an ounce shot of that every day. And that is my jam. And I combine that with one of our flagship products, which is called Bright You. It's neuroprotective, it's anti-inflammatory, kind of anti-aging. And that is like my everyday go-to combo. And I love it because, like I said, I used to take I would have to spread my pills out throughout the whole day because I would take so many pills and I could not swallow them all. And so now I take 3 pills and 1 out shot every day and I'm good to go. So, those are my things. And I started Pilates, reformer Pilates, and that has been beautiful, non-impact on my body. I used to be a runner. I don't do that anymore. And my body is so happy with that. And it feels so good and it's challenging. And so that feels good for me.
That's awesome. I would love to know if with the castor oil, did you ever get one of the actual wraps that go with the castor oil? I just got one specifically for the neck. It's
Oh, yeah.
actually it's washable and it actually has Velcro. You can step it on and then pop it on and sleep with it. Got one for my abdomen area. I was so
Yeah.
excited when I found these. I didn't know they
Yeah.
existed.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, they're great. I I haven't bought one of those wraps, but I'm notorious for rubbing castor oil all over my body and having just my underwear and bra on and doing a few things, doing laundry and letting it kind of absorb. And then I put on an old nightshirt and go to bed. But it can get sticky for people, but I just do a thin layer. And so, yeah. And then if I am going to do a wrap, I'll do the liver wrap and then I'll sometimes do dry herbs on that as well. So I like that for a little detox. That always feels good.
Awesome. Well, the last question actually is related to detox. So, the last question is, if you could detox one thing in your life
Mhm.
or in the world right now, what would it be?
I think I would detox sadness. I get emotional. I never want someone to feel that depressed state where every day feels hard, where every day feels like I don't know if I can do it because you so can. Um and there is hope and you can I just from my heart you are here on purpose and you have so much that you're supposed to be contributing. But it does start with you loving yourself and embracing the uniqueness that you are and living unapologetically as your true authentic self. And I just would love if people could find that within them, and show up in the world with who they really are. And to me, so I would detox sadness and fill the body up with all the goodness.
Awesome. I love that one. Thank you so much.
Thank
Well,
you.
I appreciate you coming on. I know that listeners, please go and visit her on Instagram, visit her website. We're going to have all that stuff in the show notes for you to check out. And if you have any questions, something specifically we did not address, if you're like, hey, I want to have her come back on again and, and talk about this, we can absolutely do that. Maybe help her hit her goal of her episodes for the year she wants to do. For other podcast episodes, we can do that. But again, thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for you listening. We appreciate y'all and be well until next time, my friends. Thank you for listening to the Mind Body Detox Podcast. If you love this podcast, share it with others and leave us a review. Your reviews help us more than you know and supports us continuing to make episodes and being heard from all over the world. You can also follow the link in our show notes to submit a topic that you would like to hear on the show.